Everybody, I'm Lee Cade, and this is Vinny. Today, we're continuing on with our Valley Voices series, where we go around Valley Behavioral Health and talk to different people who, well, basically make the company go. And it's part of a way that we're trying to make sure that we can talk about the different programs and initiatives that we have going on around Valley. I mean, we're in 3 different states. We have multiple programs that serve and help a wide and vast population of people who are in need. Today, we're going to be talking with Trace Lund, who is a residential team lead at Valley Epic. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. So, team lead, what do you do out there at Epic?
The team lead position has a lot of similarities here at Epic as with team lead positions anywhere else across the company. So, with case managers, teams like that, we're working to help make sure the case managers have the tools they need, helping make sure that, the things we need to keep the lights on, keep things running, make sure those things are happening. That's going to be our predominant sort of responsibilities, making sure our case managers are able to do that job and supporting them and making sure that's the connection from, those in ELT downward through the chain of command and eventually winding up to us and then our staff members. Here on Epic, we also have sort of another slice of that with the residential half where we're also acting as house managers. So we kind of get split responsibilities and also sort of the best of both worlds in the sense that I come to work, I interact about the same amount with my clients as I do with my staff members. So that'll be working with the client leadership, helping develop those skills. Again, a lot of our folks come from backgrounds with really punitive natures, and kind of helping that leadership work away from that and more to sort of a supportive, developmental kind of headspace. Yeah, that's a very, very quick wrap, but I'd say that's where a lot of it comes in, kind of facilitating staff and then helping out with our clients' development as well.
I guess we'd be remiss. We've talked to people from a couple of different programs. We interviewed some folks at Valley Phoenix. We've talked to some folks at Core. What does Valley Epic do?
So Valley Epic works primarily with folks who are managing dual diagnosis of substance use in some form, as well as mental illness. A lot of our folks will be coming from either chronic homelessness, experiencing extended stays and incarceration, people who maybe not experience either of those, but are recognizing that they're needing support in this area of their life. We have sort of an eclectic mix. We only really have folks that come in that are utilizing Medicaid. So a lot of these folks, this is a place where they're able to get support that they really can't get through any other avenue. We work to make sure that when they come here, they graduate with 3 main things: sobriety, housing, and funding. So when they step out of here, we're not setting them up in a position just to kind of fall back into old habits, but that they have the tools they need, both very literal tools in the sense of, the things they need to eat, sleep safely, but also those tools to help maintain sobriety with sober networks, working with the people in community and, rebuilding old connections with family or friends that may have been damaged by, they're experiencing an addiction.
Now, Epic is a 24/7 campus, isn't it?
That is correct.
Yeah, and that's unusual. I shouldn't say unusual because we do have round-the-clock facilities around the agency, but say somebody working at the North Valley building might be somewhat surprised to realize that the work just doesn't stop out there at Epic.
It definitely has a pace to it. One of the great things about it, Mike Veifinkel, who's probably one of the best brains about any of this kind of stuff, especially with Epic, he always talks about this idea that when it comes to Epic, it's a modified therapeutic community. So we kind of have that also maybe unique benefit, maybe not unique explicitly to Epic, but to a lot of situations where we're as a staff, we're not necessarily there to be, policing things or be taskmasters. Rather, we're there to support our clients and holding each other accountable. And then, if there's a situation where maybe there's another level of support that's needed, saying, okay, well, I recognize you don't really have a problem with this. There still is something that we need to address in this situation. So we have that nice support built in from our clients as well.
Now, the campus at Epic is, if I remember correctly, having grown up out there on the west side, that was at one time a junior high school. And then you have additional outbuildings that are like additional houses.
Yeah, so to be candid with you, I feel like maybe I'm lacking on my history. It feels like there's a lot of folks in the company who've, either worked here or grew up around here. I know we spoke to someone, I apologize, I can't remember who it was offhand, whose family apparently raised goats on this very plot of land. So I feel kind of like a disconnect from our history, but we do have sort of those roots in, youth facilities, our outreach building for our outpatient program. I know that part of it used to be a chapel. Our day treatment used to act as a school. We still have the lockers lining the hallways, but we do additionally have 4 units. So we have unit A, B, C, and D. A, C, and D are units that facilitate, and house male clients. Unit B is the unit that facilitates female clients and houses them. Right now, we're operating with A, B, and C. Things are a little crazy everywhere. Kind of one of the things that we've kind of tried to shuffle things around, make them functional. It's been an adventure of a year, like it has for everybody. So
one of the things that I find kind of amazing is that at full capacity, which you haven't been able to operate at for quite some time now because of COVID, but at full capacity, Epic can actually take on 99 clients.
Yeah, it's sort of a daunting number when you say it out loud. Typically, especially with the folks who work on the operational side, so the folks who are actually working on the units, as opposed to the clinical side or in the day treatment building, we kind of get stuck at times in sort of our little sphere. This is my unit. So, house A has 25, B has,
yeah.
and so it can get a little jarring when someone's like, all right, all 99 beds. And it's like, I thought I was only managing 20. And it kind of can be a little overwhelming, but it is pretty fabulous. It's pretty incredible. Prior to COVID, you'll always have challenges with keeping beds filled and sort of making sure that we have that steady flow of people who are able to come in, people who are ready to graduate. But it's pretty remarkable. Again, I think a lot of that really has to be credited to our clients themselves who show up and are willing to engage in, I'd say any treatment is going to be challenging, but really engage in a system where it's not expected that we kind of drag you along or that we do the work that you kind of got to tolerate. But it's really like, you need to show up, and, our clients do. And I think a lot of the way that we're able to operate at that capacity is really due to that client's willingness to step up.
Now, with treatment at Epic, it's no joke. These folks are in group sessions. They are putting in the work to get themselves where they need to be. What is your typical day looking like at a very atypical program?
I'll give you the sort of the client and the staff perspectives.
Sure.
A client will typically be waking up, maybe around 7 ballpark. They'll be getting up, they'll be getting ready for the day. Somewhere between that and 9 o'clock, a few things are going to be happening. Medication pass will happen. So if there's any morning medication the client utilizes, they'll be receiving that. Chores will be happening. Daily hygiene will be happening. So it's usually a pretty bustling time. Breakfast is in that window. I'm sure a cup of coffee is not amiss. All these sort of things happen. At 8:30, our client leadership. So these are leaders within the client community that have been voted up by their peers. They'll be meeting with the staff and they'll kind of be coordinating, okay, like what's going on in the unit right now? What things need to be addressed? Who needs support? Kind of just going over that. 9 o'clock hits, we do check-in. Everyone kind of checks in. Okay, where am I today? How am I feeling? What am I working on? What do I need to plan on doing? And then as time goes on, we'll have a group at 9:30, a group at 10:45. We'll have lunch at noon. We'll then have another group at 1 o'clock. We'll then kind of go through, they have some quiet time to do phase work, journaling, things like that. 4:30 hits, that'll be another group. And then 6:30 hits, and it'll be sort of another group that will tend to kind of wind down into a final checkout group. After that checkout group, again, so if there's evening chores, evening medications, just sort of, again, evening sleep hygiene, lights out hit at 10. And somewhere in there, depending on the day, you've met with your case manager. Hopefully, most days that's happening. And then, depending on the day, depending on, the week, you'll be meeting with your substance use disorder counselor, your SUDSI, and your therapist somewhere in that mix as well.
Wow.
So it's a full plate. I wonder sometimes as staff if we kind of forget that a little bit and we're kind of like, come on, like, why can't you just finish this assignment? And it's like, oh, maybe because they are in group. And so, yeah, it's a full plate.
And so from a staff perspective, that's got to imagine coordinating. How many people do you have working out there at Epic?
Oh, to be candid, I couldn't give you a solid number offhand. I mean, most units, you figure we have, a 3-slot rotation for our shifts on each unit. So that'd be our grave shift, then our day shift, and then our swing shift. In a perfect world, all of those shifts would have at least 2 staff members. House manager or our team lead would kind of be in each unit, floating around, kind of filling the holes as needed. And through that, we don't always have as many hands on deck as we'd like. Again, that's kind of the reality of the pandemic in many ways for a lot of different locations. It's hard to kind of overstate just how essential, the clients become in sort of that formula where they become sort of that extension where staff, okay, I need UAs to happen at a certain time. I need people here at these times so they can see, the prescriber. And you can only do so much, but that's where that client community really steps in and helps out.
So your case managers are pretty much hitting the ground running at the beginning of the shift, and that just goes the whole time, right?
When you arrive in, you will have sort of a quick huddle, maybe 5 to 15 minutes, depending on how, wild the day has been. Kind of checking, hey, like they're doing great. Hey, they had a rough day. They got some bad news. Clients are checking in with them. You may also just want to keep an eye on them. They had a court appointment. It did not go well. They had a court appointment. It went great. They are still needing to get a hold of a pair of glasses. They're going to coordinate with you. Kind of all of those things wrapped into one. And, we have, again, sort of the unique, depending on sort of who you talk to, situation where we're not just case managing in those situations, we're also kind of helping run that community. So again, we're utilizing that leadership, but when they're not quite sure, okay, like, well, what would the expectation be? I think one of the more obvious options is hygiene. We have a lot of folks who, for a very long time, have not even had access to running water, to anything like that. So it's not surprising they're not sure quite what the standard of laundry would be. What, when it comes to washing your dishes, where is that standard?
Right.
And kind of that staff, as part of their case manager responsibilities, is also working to model, okay, like, this is professional behavior, this is professional attire, this is washing your hands, and really making sure not just that, you're picking the one person out saying like, hey, I can tell you really need this support, let's do this. But also just supplying that as a community, we're working to support each other. Part of that is making sure everyone knows how to keep this place safe. Everybody knows how to sort of respect others with your personal space and yourself being sort of clean for the community and things like that.
At the end of the day, when all's said and done and you get home and you're doing whatever it is that you do to relax and unwind, what is it that you find most rewarding about the work that you do out there?
So my background is in psychology. I'm pursuing, other things more on the clinical side, but a lot of my background is in research psychology and experimental psychology, things like that. For a while, I was really interested in going more in that direction, sort of finding, industrial organizational options and things like that. And as I kind of started doing more of that work, I realized, if I'm going to have to show up 40 hours a week for this, it's got to mean more to me than a paycheck. I can't sort of have that and be worth it at the end of the day for me. So I think for me, really seeing, I feel like progress is maybe a little cliche or maybe even a little vague, but seeing clients really take on responsibilities, I think is one of the biggest sort of satisfactions to me. Not that they're sort of finished with something, but rather they're taking on something and they're willing to step up in a situation where they may not have been able to or willing to in the past, and really seeing them step into that. And again, just kind of seeing people recognize what they're able to do and seeing them sort of gain that empowerment for themselves, that helps you sleep at night, that you're sort of taking a part in that. And on a more selfish level, folks that tend to work in this neighborhood or in this industry tend to be people who share a lot of the values that I do. We don't have all the same opinions or anything like that, but ultimately, you really don't show up to Epic if you're, not interested in really sort of getting down on the ground level and, helping people who have some real challenges.
Seeing some of that progress is always kind of rewarding too.
For sure.
Absolutely. So what's next for you, Trace?
So I'm currently studying for my CMHC, so going to clinical mental health counseling. So that's kind of on my horizon. I kind of sort of serendipitously kind of fell into this position to a certain degree. It's not really where I saw myself necessarily a few years ago. So it's one of these things that, opportunities came, and I guess I was ready enough to seem ready to the people who are making decisions. And, it's been really, really valuable to me. It's been a great experience. And it's one that, I'm hoping as I kind of move more to, again, that more clinical side from the operational side, is going to be something that I can kind of draw from, because certainly it's not experiences that I would have really been familiar with otherwise, and it's experiences that I probably really wouldn't have considered very much had it not kind of wound up where I am.
We all have this story doing the work that we do where we meet somebody from outside of our line of work, and sometimes they find an aspect of the job that we do somewhat surprising or shocking. What have you noticed that folks outside of behavioral health find most surprising or unusual about the work that you do?
I think, I think sometimes it's the more mundane things, or at least kind of what we think about. We really kind of have to be comfortable getting our hands dirty sometime, in the sense that, you don't just sit in an office all day. So when it comes to things like, oh yeah, our staff collects, urine samples, like that's part of it. It's like, well, why would you do that? And it's like, well, because that's an essential part of accountability in a residential program, managing folks who are recovering from addiction. Or alternatively, like, oh, like pretty chill. It's like, well, like I've had people stare me down for about a minute in pure silence after saying like, no, you're going to do that. I'm like, oh, I'm not. And then, you have this pause and eventually it breaks down where, again, it's, it takes a level of comfort in the work and confidence that, you want to be here, but also that you have put in the time to feel like you're able to do things. and really put in the effort to do that, which again, a lot of times folks come to Epic with that, and sometimes they develop it here. But I don't know of any staff member that's really worked here that hasn't had an element of like, no, like I can handle it. I've been here, like I can handle it.
What have you found most different or rewarding about the work you're doing here at Valley Epic compared to where you worked prior to coming to Valley?
So I think one of the biggest things that's really impacted sort of my, satisfaction and sort of being able to enjoy where I'm working is the population I work with. When I did my group interview, they asked, where are you thinking about working? And I was kind of like, just been thinking about, I was like, I think maybe working with folks who've been incarcerated, maybe folks who've been homeless, kind of just sort of on a whim. And it's come to define the next 3 years of my life, of course. But it really has been one of these things where, my previous line of work, we had folks who came from, wealthier backgrounds a lot of times. I think for me, working with folks where this is really their shot to get this. As much as I'd love to say they've got lots of other resources, the reality is a lot of them don't. This is kind of what they have. And being able to sort of be a part of that, okay, well, this is what you're able to get to. Like, let's make this as productive, as supportive, as safe as possible. And I think being able to kind of walk away saying like, no, like this is someone's only option and I'm going to be part of making that the best option it can possibly be. That's one of the reasons I stay here.
Awesome. Sounds amazing. Trace, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.